You're listening to TCR Radio.
Good evening. Welcome to Tiverton Literary Festival Party Night. And another big round of applause for Hazel, please, and her fantastic harp playing. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Hazel. She also played at the Tiverton Castle earlier today. Had a history talk up there with MJ Colwood, who's here, and Douglas Rice at Tiverton Castle. That's very popular. And we just want to thank you all for coming tonight. I'm Caro from Tiverton Community Radio, and myself and Rachel G at the back, and the Porters Company Sue. Off to the Mayor's Ball. Have a chicken drumstick for me. Hope you have a lovely evening. So just want to welcome you here, and we've got a really good night for you this evening. We're kicking off with the illustrious Christopher Biggins, who's backstage now, limbering up as we speak with Judy Spires.
Oh, no, he's not.
He's limbering. Oh, yes, he is. Oh, yes, he is. Yeah, there he is. He's mic'd up. And then we're going to have a lovely talk with Judy and Christopher, and then we're going to have a short break, and Christopher is hopefully going to be signing some of his biographies with Lionel, who's come all the way from Toronto, from Brendan Books. So thank you for coming here tonight. So Christopher will be there straight after he's done his chat. There's also a raffle, so if you haven't brought a ticket, do get a ticket off Philippa at the back from the Porters Company, and they've been fantastic sponsoring this event as the previous two events as well. We've got the previous organiser, big up for Jenny Kane over there, pass the reins on. Thank you, Jenny. I hope we're doing it justice for you. And so we've got the raffle, and then after the break, there's obviously the bar, very important. We have performance poet Lucy English in the house at the break. Fantastic, not to be missed. Please do watch Lucy after the break doing her performance poetry. Very, very good. And then we have the acoustic musicians to end the evening, ending approximately 10:15-ish, depending. So I do hope you have a lovely evening tonight. So I'm going to hand you over, stage right, to Judy and Christopher Biggins.
Oh, dear.
I've forgotten which side I am.
We're fairly hysterical because we're backstage waiting to come on. And Judy said, "Are we on?" And the two technicians here said, "No, we got to get the violinist off first." So we're pretty hysterical about that. I'm sorry about it. I'm sorry to put you into it, but you said you don't know about musical instruments, nor do I. It's going to be a funny evening. How are you? Nice to see you.
Purple chair.
Where are you sitting?
I'm sitting here.
You're in the low seat.
You've got the commode.
I've got the commode. Isn't this a beautiful building, by the way? It's fantastic.
You may sit.
Thank you.
It's lovely to see you. Christopher and I have done several of these events together.
Today?
Today. And
No.
I've been carrying around these notes for 3 years. They're absolutely pointless. I've never had the chance to ask any of them. And we were at Sidmouth yesterday, weren't we? Yes. And then we have a lovely journey here.
We did. Judy said she'll give me a lift from Sidmouth to Tiverton, and I understood it was about 15 minutes. Should it be 15 minutes?
Well, about 30 minutes.
Yeah. Well, we 3.5 hours, I think we were. We passed lovely pandas, wooden pandas, and ostriches.
Ostriches.
It was like a sort of tour of Africa, I thought I was.
We came via Columpton.
Yes.
I've no idea why. And the awful thing is, I have to say, that Tiverton, that where Christopher is staying at the Fisherman's Cot, is about 25 minutes from my house in a straight line. So we went across country. Mind you, I've never been to Columpton for about 30 years. It's quite nice.
Very nice.
But it was a good hour and a half before we got.
But we put everything in to the immigration system. What is it called? Navigation system.
The sat nav.
Now, did someone when you mentioned where I was staying, did someone go, "Oh, that's who was that?"
Somebody over here went.
So, do you go, "Oh, that's nice, madam"? Was it you?
It's Fisherman's Cot.
It is nice. It's very nice. Do you know it?
Yes, everybody knows it.
Everybody knows
Everybody knows the
it.
Fisherman's Cot.
But I was really impressed. It's lovely sitting outside, and the river is so gorgeous. And we had a crane come and have a look, and went sort of around looking for fish. It's really enchanting. Lovely rooms too. Lovely rooms. No sheets or towels, but it didn't really matter. It was fine, you know.
Now, isn't it funny, listening to you, we better get on with this.
We better.
Christopher, isn't it?
Yes.
Christopher has, I think you'll agree, the most beautiful speaking voice and very distinctive. It's hard to imagine that he ever had a Wiltshire burr.
I know. Because...
give him a bit of it. Give him a bit of it.
Yeah, I will know, because I was brought up in Salisbury. I was born in Oldham, because that's where my father came from, and my mother had me up in Oldham, if you pardon the expression, and I was a very frail baby. I nearly died.
Oh, it's worse than that. Oh.
And so she hated Oldham, and so within 3 weeks she packed everything up in the back of a Pickford's lorry and wrapped me in cotton wool, and down we came. And I was brought up in Salisbury, so all of our family, they talk like that. Are you all right over there?
Just getting comfy.
Yes, do you want... Oh, right, good. Do you want to... There's a seat there, look. Do you want to go and sit there?
No.
You sure?
You get picked on in the front. yeah.
Yes, you'll be involved in a minute, madam. It'll be lovely. We get people to come up and dance with us at the end.
So...
It's fabulous. Anyway, so, digressing. So, all my family talked like that, and I had a great Auntie Vi, who was a terrible snob. And she insisted I have elocution lessons. So I had elocution lessons from my school, which my parents paid for me to go to in Salisbury. And Mrs. Christian taught me how to speak the Queen's English, which I do now reasonably well, and also got me interested in theatre. So I was very, very lucky. And in fact, when I was 16 and a half years old and left school, you know, I find it interesting now. I think it's wrong that everybody is forced almost to go to university. I don't think there's any need. Do you? I think it's much better if you don't go out and find a career. Anyway, I didn't know what I was going to do, and I went to Salisbury Rep, which was a fantastic repertory company, and they did 2-week rep there. And I went to see a man called Reggie Solberg, who ran it, and said, could I have a job? And he said, yes, come for 2 weeks. And I went for 2 weeks and stayed 2 years. So I really loved it, and I was very lucky. I was a student ASM, which is assistant stage manager, and I was on, photograph, how lovely. That's fine. And I can smell a camera 50 miles away. And so I went there, and I started off at £2 a week, heavily subsidized by my family. And then I ended up, the following year, I said a year for £2 a week, then I ended up as an ASM on £8 a week, and I finished up as a stage manager at £16 a week. And, big time. Yeah. Really, and then I went to drama school. Anyway, there we go.
Yeah,
there we are.
Hi. You see, that I think it's very easy to think of Christopher today, especially if you're younger. No, you're all right. And to think of Christopher as just a huge personality who appears in fun programs, but you're grounded. And you know, they like to say, who turn up to the opening of a fridge. But you have this great love of theatre, and that is your backbone.
It is.
It's theatre.
The worst thing that was ever said along those lines was the Christopher Biggers, he'll go to the opening of a vein.
Oh.
That was really hurtful.
But
anyway, you're right. So I did start off in theatre. I joined, when I left drama school, I went to the Royal Shakespeare Company and
Who were you there with?
I was there with Judi Dench. I went to do a play called London Assurance, which was a wonderful Boucicault play. And I played a part which had no lines, and he was seen 3 times, and each time he made his entrance, he got a round of applause. Bye-bye, sir, it's very nice. You've taken the photograph and you're leaving now,
It's had enough.
You're going to go and develop it?
No, I tell you what, he's off to the mayor's ball.
Oh, no, you see?
We weren't invited.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Where was I?
You were doing London Assurance.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
London Assurance. And we had Judi Dench, Donald Sinden, Barry Ingham, and it was a wonderful, wonderful play. And it was fantastic. So I did that season. And then they said to me, I was so naive in those days and green and innocent. I didn't know about anything. And they said, would you like to do some other plays? So I did Twelfth Night. I did Henry VIII with Peggy Ashcroft, which was unbelievable to work with her.
Experience.
And then we also did various other plays. And I remember in Winter's Tale, I played the bear.
Oh.
You remember the bear?
Not really.
There's a sequence, there's one comment about the bear. So I actually played the bear.
Right.
So it was a really marvellous experience. And I'm still friends to this day. We were talking about Judi Dench, and she is fantastic. Did you see her on Graham Norton? Wonderful. She is unbelievable. And you know she's got this terrible...
macular degeneration.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
She can't see. You have to go up and say, hi, Judy, it's Biggins. Oh, hi, darling, how are you? I mean, she is so lovely and a brilliant, brilliant actress. She was talking about this new film she's doing, playing Queen Victoria, who fell in love with an Indian man after after her husband died and also...
Albert.
Yes, John Brown. This was somebody... Did you know about this other one? You did. You're obviously very clever, madam.
I didn't know about that. But when you were at drama school, what were the sort of roles you were getting? I mean, because there are always those. I played men.
Did you?
I was always the old man or the Julie Walters sort of waitress that came in, because there were, and I was never the Ophelia or the Helena or the Hermia. That all went to the girls from the sort of upper class girls with lovely parted hair, who were like that, instead of me with a sort of mini skirt up to here, backcombed hair and Bambi eyelashes. So what did you have?
Well, I did various things. I can't remember any of them. We did a lot of good things. We had some wonderful. Is that my hearing aid? That noise? Yeah. Is it yours? Are you serious? No. We had a wonderful. It was very funny because drama school was the best time of my life because it was the first time I'd mixed with my own age group, and we had a wonderful year. And there was a young girl who we're now talking 50 years ago. And a young girl who I recently, 2 weeks ago, we got back together again, and I had lunch with her. I took her to lunch in London. And she married. It was a drama school romance, and she married. She was going to be a big star. She had a wonderful actress, very clever, and she was going to be the star. And she married a boy who was at drama school with us, who was a bit naff, who was a bit sort of not very good, who was a bit sort of all over the place. And they married, and I was their best man. And within a year, I went on their honeymoon, funnily enough. And the marriage didn't last any more than a year.
Kiss of death.
Kiss of death, exactly. Anyway, the actor that she married was called Jeremy Irons. And she went back to being the doctor that she was, boyfriend and girlfriend. She went back to him, married him, and is still with him, and she has 2 children by him. And Jeremy Irons, of course, went on to win Oscars, so what do we know about his talent? But it was a fabulous, fabulous year. We had Tim Pickett-Smith, too, who's just recently tragically died at the age of 72, which was terrible. And I went to his funeral, and it was odd because, I don't know, do you want to be buried?
No.
No, nor do I.
No.
And he was buried, and I find it very odd putting a body... Does anybody here want to be buried?
Well...
You do, madam. Madam, yes, you do.
Well, not yet.
No.
Not
Tonight.
Yeah.
You could do a double... And in fact, his wife, Pam, who... is still alive. They had a double, he went down first and she goes on top. I find it very creepy.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah, it's rather odd, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you left drama school and you went to the RSC, did you have ideas then of going straight onto the stage? Did you want to be a film star? What did you want to be?
No, I had no ambition, and I've never had any ambition at all. I mean, I just love what I do. I've had the most marvelous career. I've really enjoyed it. I love meeting people. I love evenings like this. It's fantastic. So I've never had any ambition. Thankfully, you'll be pleased to hear that I have no ambition to play Hamlet, so you won't be seeing that anywhere or any of those. I mean, I've done Shakespeare. I did many, many seasons in Regent's Park Open Air Theatre, one of the great theatres in London. In fact, I was in Midsummer Night's Dream there. I played Puck. In fact, I was the best Puck in the park that year. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. Shall I tell the story about meeting the Queen that year?
Oh, please.
Yeah, so it was the 50th anniversary of the theatre. We were doing Midsummer Night's Dream, and me giving up my Puck. And the Queen came, but she doesn't like theatre. She only likes short things. She doesn't really like that. You know, she's bored by it, because if the actors were horses, she would love it. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I think she's the greatest monarch ever. So we did a play, or rather, they put on a play, which was a two-hander, written by Bernard Shaw, which was about Queen Elizabeth I meeting Shakespeare. And it was a very funny play, because it was sort of innuendo going on. And the night before we had the performance in the park, the Queen had the intruder. Do you remember? Who was sat on the end of her bed. So there was all that going. When she arrived, everybody was very excited, and there were lots of laughs that came because of the situation of Queen Elizabeth I meeting Shakespeare. So it was a great, great evening. We were chosen, different people, to meet her. So I was chosen to meet her in my dressing room. Now, the dressing room was probably about from here to the edge of that seat, and about that wide. So there was only room for the Queen to come in, and Philip had to stand in the doorway with the director of the theatre, David Conville. So David Conville said, "Oh, Mum, this is Christopher Biggins, who's playing Puck and Philostrate." So she said, "How lovely." So I said, "Well, it is lovely." I said, "These are my costumes. This is Puck's costume, and this is Philostrate's costume." And she said, "Yes, I've just seen Titiana's costume." And I thought, it's too early to laugh. I can't laugh, because, you know, she obviously doesn't like theatre. So I then showed her bits and pieces of makeup and greeting cards that people send, and all paraphernalia in the dressing room. And eventually she said, "And what are those?" So I brought them down, and I said, "These are Puck shoes." And she turned to Philip and said, "Look, Philip, Puck shoes." Whereupon I did laugh out loud. And there's this wonderful picture of me laughing and the Queen looking very po-faced. I mean, poor woman, what she must have to go through day in and day out, meeting all sorts of people and trying to be interested. Should I tell my other story about the Queen, which I love this story. I met her many times, but I do a lot of charity work. I have to stand up for this. It was a Red Cross charity, and the Queen sat for the first half for the whole evening, she sat, of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Bombay Dreams, poor thing. She had to sit through that. And so I was introduced to her in the interval, and the man said, "Oh, well, this is Christopher Biggins, who's going to do the auction after you leave." So she said, "Oh, how lovely." So I said, "Well, it is lovely." I said, "Because you being here, you've raised a lot of money. And hopefully when you've left, I'll raise a lot more money." So she was dressed sensationally, beautiful hair, and she had the row of pearls around her neck, which were huge, absolutely huge. And so I said, "You know, hopefully when you've left, I'll raise a lot of my money." So she just stood there. She didn't move, nor did I. I looked at her, she looked at me, and eventually I said, "I don't suppose you've got anything I could auction." She moved away. So I was with my partner Neil, and we started to laugh because it was very, very funny. So we were chatting away, and all of a sudden, she came back, which is unheard of. So she came back and she said, "What are you auctioning?" So I said, "Well, I've got holidays, and I've got art, and I've got memorabilia, and I've got jewellery." And she went, "Oh." With a real twinkle in her eye. Can you imagine if she said, "Oh, take these pearls"? My goodness, we'd have made a fortune.
I just remember what you have lovely posture.
Thank you.
And isn't it something to do with the lemon?
Yes, when we were very good memory. When we were at drama school, we had a wonderful teacher called Rudy Shelley, who was mid-European, and he said he always made us. He said, "Now, what you you must always stand upright, and just to help you, think of a lemon up your ass and squeeze it all the time. And if you do this, when you get home tonight, imagine a lemon up your ass, and you will stand how you should stand." It's fascinating.
No.
Don't use a real lemon.
Tears to your eyes.
Exactly, just imagine a lemon.
Yeah,
but it is one. It does really make you stand up properly.
Having met all the royalty that you've met and mixing with the people that you mix with, and you've already told us that your parents were from Oldham and lived in Wiltshire and spoke with that. What did your parents make of this? Because your father was an incredible character, wasn't he?
He was. He was a wonderful character. He had a garage, and he first of all sold motorbikes and did that, and then he went on to cars. And he was an amazing man. And I remember my mother and I were in the sitting room one day watching a Betty Davis movie. And he came in and unplugged the television and took it away. And we said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I've sold it." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I've sold it, but you'll get a bigger and a better one tomorrow," which we did. Well, we never finished that film. So, I mean, he was amazing. He was fantastic. And they worked very, very hard, because I was an only child. Until I was 18 years old, and I was leaving home, and my mother said, "Oh, by the way, I'm pregnant." I said, "Don't be so stupid." I mean, the thought of one's parents still doing it. I know differently now, of course. You'll find this out later.
Yes, but of course, your mother was pregnant, and it was all down to Robin Ellis.
Yes, in the company in Salisbury Rep, we had the leading actor was Robin Ellis, who I went on, funny enough, to do Poldark with. Years later, I did the sex-crazed vicar in Poldark. Did you ever see the first series of Poldark?
Ozzie Whitworth.
Ozzie Whitworth. I'll tell you about him in a minute. But anyway, so Robin Ellis invited my parents, who at this particular time only had me. And my mother said, I didn't bother having other children. I just thought I'd have one big one. Get it over with. So I was the big one that she had. And then Robin Ellis invited them to a party. And my mother and father got very squiffy on a few drinks. And they went back and did the business. And suddenly I had a brother. Who has never been a brother, because I've only known him as a friend, because I was leaving home when he was, and he's a lovely boy, I mean, lovely. Sadly been married twice, has 2 children by the first wife, and nothing by the second, thank goodness. I can't bear her, she's not very nice. You know, you share these things with you. But anyway, but he is a lovely boy, Sean, but I was so shocked that my parents... Suddenly my mother was pregnant. Oh, dear.
Let's move on to Poldark.
Yes, Poldark.
Poldark.
I did a series called I, Claudius, playing Nero, which I don't know if you've seen that. And I urge you, not because I get a little bit of money, but the DVD is still brilliant to this day. It shows what a really wonderful, wonderful TV series it was. And it was very interesting because they, first of all, when it came out, the critics slated it. They said, "This is terrible television. This is appalling." They said, you should get rid of Sian Phillips. She's so bad. I mean, she was wonderful, Sian. Yeah. Derek Jacobi was the 68th choice to play. The first choice was Alec Guinness. And Derek was the 6th. In fact, of course, Derek was absolutely brilliant. But the night, when we started rehearsing it, where there was a very small company, because everybody had been killed or died by the last episode. So we were rehearsing, and suddenly they changed their minds, the critics. And they turned around and said, "We made a big mistake. This is the great television." And it really was. It was fantastic television. And I remember we had all the big stars came back. Sian Phillips, all the people who died, John Hurt, George Baker, they were all there, and they were all in a line. They came to the last rehearsal in the rehearsal studio, and they sat there looking at us. And Barbara Young, who played my mother, her husband had adapted the books for television. And I said, so we all were acting away, and they were all standing there for that, just observing us. And I said to Barbara after we did the scene, you know, it's so terrifying. I keep thinking they're going to put 8.4 like ice skaters go up. But we had a scene in this particular episode of I, Claudius, where I, rather petulantly as Nero, went to her and said, you know, my wife won't have sex with me. So she said, don't worry, darling. She explained that these things happen. And then at the end of the scene, she lay back on the bed, and I went on top of her. And it was quite something in those days. When it went to America, they cut that scene because they said they couldn't take incest. They could take Trump, though, can't they? So that was cut. So then the night that was transmitted, the producer of Poldark rang the producer of I, Claudius and said, what's this Biggins like? And he gave me a very, very good reference. And I was offered the sex-crazed vicar, Ossie Whitworth, which I absolutely adored playing. He was voted the most hated man that year on television by the Daily Mail, and they know what they were talking about, the Daily Mail, as you all know. So we did that, and it was fabulous. Winston Graham, who, you know, just down the road in Cornwall, it was great because we filmed for 6 months in Cornwall. It was fantastic. Yeah. But anyway, Winston became a very good friend. But he wrote a scene where I had to make love to my wife's sister because I was told she was pregnant, Morwenna, and I was told by the doctor that I had to stop having sex with her because I was too heavy. And when I was told this, I had a scene of me going, heavy? Total disbelief. So anyway, he then puts his attentions onto the sister. And there was a scene which Winston Graham wrote where I had to make love to her feet. And all week, Julie Dawn Cole, who played the sister, went to Dr. Scholl's to have her feet done. And she washed them every day. And then we went to Pebble Mill, which you know very well, to do all the interiors, and we filmed. And the morning of the shoot, she washed her feet about 1,000 times. She was carried onto the bed. She was placed in the bed, and on action, there was a close-up of her foot, and my tongue came between two of her toes. And some people like that, you know. And the head of BBC Drama at the time said, no way could he put that scene out on a Sunday night after Dad's Army, so it was cut.
So you got the part of that after they'd seen you as Nero. But I always think it's quite fascinating how people get parts. And to get that magnificent part of Nero, they had actually seen a commercial.
I know. I did a commercial about a year before they started to make I, Claudius. And I knew they were making I, Claudius. And I was asked to do this commercial for Heineken Lager. And it paid me a lot of money, and I would have earned a lot of money if it had been successful. But in fact, something went terribly wrong with it. And the scene was Nero sitting like this in the games, and they built a huge set at Shepperton of a corner of the Colosseum. And they had about, in those days, we're talking about 45, 46 years ago.
Is it?
Yeah, I think it must be that long.
No.
At least 40 years.
Is it?
Yeah. And, yes, I know.
I remember.
Anyway, they built this thing, and it was, Nero was there in the games, and down below, there were two men waiting. One was waiting to kill the other, and they were waiting for a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And so I was sitting there rather petulantly with my thumb on a thumb stand, as you do, and nothing was happening at all. So I called for Heineken Lager. And Heineken Lager is brought on by three gorgeous women carrying this, you know, dressed in very little, and they give me a sip of the lager. And as they give me a sip, my thumb starts to twitch like that. And then I have another sip, and it twitches even more, and eventually it rises triumphantly. And I went down to the two guys, and at the end I went like that. Very funny ending. Everybody was happy. Cost a fortune. I was going to earn a fortune. When they showed it, it was off within a week because they said, you can't advertise beer on the death of Christians. And no one had thought to do an alternative ending. So we all lost out. I lost out on my home in the south of France. No, I mean, it is extraordinary how, you know, certain things
So after all these classical parts, you then turn up on television in the Safari program.
I did a children's program called On Safari.
On Safari, yeah.
It was quite interesting because there's two stories here. Because around 40 years ago, I started my career in pantomime. And when I was invited to be a pantomime dame, I was 26 years old. And when they asked me to play pantomime dame, I was quite frankly insulted. And the reason I was insulted was that every pantomime dame I'd ever seen was in their 70s, old men. How dare they ask me to do something like a pantomime? And also, I was a serious actor. I didn't do things like pantomime. Anyway, they kept asking, and they kept putting the money up. And 40 years ago, they offered me £1,000 a week. Now, that was a huge amount of money 40 years ago. The seats were 1 in 6. How did they make any money? But they did, and of course, I absolutely got hooked, and I've been doing it ever since. And in fact, last year was the first year I had a sabbatical, which was wonderful, because, you know, it is, we were talking about this earlier in the day, it is unbelievably hard work, because we do 2 shows a day, that's 12 shows a week, 1 day off, usually the Monday. And the dame, me, my character, I have 13 costume changes. So if I'm not on stage, I'm off in the wings, changing into another one. So it's constantly doing. But don't get me wrong, I love it, and I've had some great times.